My name's Damon Shaw, from Widdershins Mine. Widdershins means to go round something anti-clockwise. Did my mother teach me this? Did it spring from insecurity and need? I just knew, though only 4 years old. I started small, with my neighbour's cow. The beast blinked at me as I stumbled round it through the dew-spangled grass, once round, twice, 3 times anti-clockwise, and the cow was mine. It followed me home. The farmer said nothing. The cow had suddenly always been ours. Mine. But I wanted more. On my 21st birthday, I finished walking the coast of Scotland anti-clockwise for the 3rd time. I reached Aberdeen in the drizzle, feet blistered with a grin I couldn't hide. The soul of Scotland surged through me, the weight of mountains, rains, lochs, the people, architecture and art. All mine. First I raised taxes on the rich, then I claimed independence. It went down better than I'd expected. Planning my route around the earth took time. The seed of the story came from an idea, a memory of mine, from when I was a child, and I come from a very small island off the north of Scotland. And there was this story that my father was telling, and I don't remember anything about it apart from this tiny fragment, that someone was walking along the road and with their cow, and they met a woman, and this woman was known to be a witch, apparently. And while they were chatting away, this man noticed that the woman was walking around him, anti-clockwise, him and the cow. And before she could do it 3 times, he panicked and went and ran with the cow. And that's all I remember. And I was thinking about this and wondering why the woman was doing this, what she was trying to achieve. And I kind of came to the conclusion that it could only be possession of some kind, owning that animal. So the story came from that, from someone who, by walking around something 3 times anti-clockwise, could make it theirs completely. So I took that idea and I started thinking about the type of person that would want to own everything. And I made this journey of this person who started small and began walking around things, bigger and bigger things, until they were all theirs, until they all belonged to them. And the first version of this story was quite a bit longer. This story is actually only a flash fiction story. It's 1,000 words. But the first version was almost double that. And it had a frame around it of the first and last scenes, which occurred far after the action of the story took place. And I was very proud of this story, and I sent it off to Flash Fiction Online, which is a very nice online magazine for short stories. And I got a rewrite request, which means that they wanted me to, if I'd managed to rewrite it well enough, they would accept it. And they asked me to get rid of the frame scenes, the beginning and the end, which gave me a lot more space to work with. And they asked me to develop the inner life of the character and communicate it more. So I managed to do that. I managed to do it after 2 or 3 rewrites. So I think there was 3 in all that went back and forth between us. And in the end, they accepted the story. So that's kind of how it happened. I've been writing kind of more seriously since 2009. And at first I had lots and lots and lots of ideas, and I would just write around those ideas or towards them vaguely, and get to the good bits that I had in my mind and write that bit, and then I'd have to see what I had at the end. It was usually a mess of words, and I had to rewrite. It's very hard. I don't outline very much. I make a few bullet points, and then I kind of write between them. If I've thought it all through, I lose interest in the story, which I think is quite a common thing. So I had no. I kind of think of plot and structure as a library of techniques that you've got at hand, that you know the effect it'll have on the reader, and it'll make the reading journey more complete and intense. And I had none of that to hand. I had none of these tools in my library. My library was completely empty. And so bit by bit, I've picked up a few tips, and I'm working mainly towards, and the idea between plot and structure, they're still quite confused in my head. Plot is the incidents of the story, and the structure is the overall shape of the story. But to me, I can't really separate them. I'm not very good at separating them. But now at least I know that you have to, that a lot of the tools of plot are to guide the reader's journey and give them an intense experience. So you can, and I know that there's more tools, like you can have wild action scenes that escalate and get more and more intense, and as the story goes, or emotionally intense scenes. Whatever happens, you can't let the pace drop so much that the reader gets bored. So I think I work towards that now. Having a main character that the reader is interested in, having that main character having a desire that they really want to achieve, and having the plot throw obstacles at that character until the character either achieves it or fails to achieve it and learns something along the way. That's the kind of strictures I'm trying to impose on what I'm doing at the moment. Well, I got given one little tip, and it's just one little tip, which was something called resonators and the rule of three, that someone said to me. The rule of three is something that comes up an awful lot in fiction. But resonators is where you take one little theme or a sentence or an image or a phrase, and you develop it. So you mention it once at the beginning of the story or somewhere early in the story. You mention it in the middle and develop it slightly so that it stays alive in the reader's mind. And then you bring it up finally at the end, or to round something off, having changed it. And the difference in having changed it resonates very, very strongly with what you've set up already. So it's a way if you can't find an ending to a story, it's a way that you can cheat basically by having something that punches the reader quite hard at the end and provides a satisfactory ending. It works very well for flash fiction. That's just a little tip. Well, I think the book that immediately came to mind, and it's been turned into a film, is The Cloud Atlas. It's a series of 6 kind of short stories or novelettes, cut in half and sandwiched around each other. So you get the first half of each story, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you get the endings, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And in that way, and the stories are all from the way, way distant past right through into the way, way distant future. And in that way, the author managed to set up so many different resonating themes and so many different interesting structures and ideas by using that very clear structure. And it blows me away, the book. And then I really like the film as well, because it's got the added complications of all the different actors playing different parts, and the music as well, which is a very big part of the film. That's my most striking structural plot-wise. I think it's more structural than plot-wise, I think. But it's the most striking example I can come up with, and I really like it. It's my favourite film at the moment. The first place you should visit, well, all the islands, there are 7 Canary Islands, and they're all very, very different. Some of them have got really high volcanoes that have got snow on them, and some of them are very low level they're subtropical deserts with no rainfall hardly ever at all. I live on Lanzarote, which is a desert island, a few palm trees, a lot of cacti, and normally during the year no greenery at all. It's all rocks and volcanic ash. And so I suppose the first thing you should go and see is the volcanoes, the volcanoes they're still categorized as live. They've got a restaurant there where they roast chickens over the crater of the volcano, and so I suppose that's probably the most typical of the island. So if you're interested in hearing any more of my work, because I've got a few things in Audible, I've got something with the Drabblecast, a story called Betty Flesh and the Meat Man, which is really weird. It's the weirdest story I've ever written, which is why the Drabblecast took it, because they like weird things. I've got a horror story called Whelp with the Dunesteef podcast, and I've got a story called The Meat Locker coming out with the Glittership podcast. Sometime, I don't know when, but everything's a bit on hold with the pandemic, of course. But I've got those coming out. And then if you want to find any stories, you can follow the chain. Todd managed to find me through the story in Flash Fiction Online. And I've got a couple of stories there and another story coming out shortly with Flash Fiction Online.